At this point, I'm sure some of you guys have noticed that SCHD, which has a pretty unhealthy cult-like following within the dividend community, recently has been underperforming its peers, which it usually overperforms. Some of the most stiff competition to SCHD, in my humble opinion, is names like DGRO, DGRW, and Noble, a classic dividend aristocrats ETF. And year to date, most of these funds are up anywhere between 1 and 5%. The S&P is up 8%, but SCHD is down 5%. Quite a big discrepancy here. That is certainly an eye-opening difference, and it has led some people on mainly Reddit to ask the question, is the prime years of SCHD and its overperformance, is that finally over now? So we're going to tackle that question in today's video, revisit SCHD, and see what's going on with it. If you guys enjoy, I always appreciate a like, subscribing helps out the channel quite a lot. And let's get into this. So for me, this began 4 days ago when I saw this post on Reddit bringing up the topic of SCHD's underperformance. As we saw, he explains how SCHD is trailing the S&P 500, other dividend funds like DGRO are doing better, and ultimately he's asking the question, is this a good buy the dip opportunity, or after the most recent rebalancing, is something different now about SCHD? Now in the comments, there's a ton of different posts, people giving their theory of what's potentially going on with SCHD right now. The scapegoat that I saw most often is pointing to the relatively high exposure SCHD has to the financial sector. And at first glance, this does make some sense because SCHD really began to underperform mid-March of this year. That's right when the banking crisis began, and financials do make up 13.37% of SCHD. But I don't think this is at least a full reason behind the recent weakness of this fund. After all, lots of dividend ETFs have a pretty comparable exposure to financials, if not more, and this fund has been performing just fine. I think if we take a look at this heat map of the year-to-date performance of the S&P 500, this can tell us why SCHD has been underperforming as of the past 2 months. So looking back to 2022, we all know that the stock market was rough that year. Essentially everything was down big, especially large cap tech names. Those had quite a large correction throughout 2022. And so far in 2023, the performance has been almost the exact opposite, with large cap tech driving most of the returns in the market so far this year. So we can see using this heat map that Apple year to date is up 33%, Microsoft 27%, Amazon 23%, Meta is even up 90%. But the rest of the market is kind of being left behind, and we see a lot more of a mixed bag. These are the top 10 holdings of DGRO, and the 2 top holdings are Microsoft and Apple. In contrast to that, this is the top 10 holdings for SCHD. No Microsoft, no Apple, and that one difference can essentially explain the difference in performance so far this year between DGRO and SCHD. So that's my theory on why I think SCHD has been underperforming not just the market, but also other dividend funds so far this year. Yes, SCHD does have exposure to financial companies. Most ETFs do, but unlike most dividend ETFs, SCHD is less diversified and doesn't have great exposure to large cap tech names, which have accounted for the majority of the returns so far this year. But it's important to remember that trends come and go, they change all the time, and SCHD has only been underperforming for a couple of months, which in my opinion is not nearly long enough to call it systemic. After all, nothing has changed with the underlying functionality of SCHD. It still follows the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index. For companies to qualify for this index, they have to meet very strict and high criteria, like free cash flow to debt, return on equity, a competitive dividend growth rate. And for those that still agree with the construction of SCHD, I don't see any reason to be concerned with the recent price action. I just think this serves as another example of sentiment following price within the stock market. When things go up, people become more bullish, and when things go down in price, people begin to question all their life choices. So personally, I'm going to be using this as a good buying opportunity because the yield of SCHD right now is 3.72%, making it one of the best times in recent history to initiate a position in this fund. Of course, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, not financial advice, but that's how I'm viewing the situation. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're still watching and enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.